Hello, and welcome to BespokeUnit. My name is Rafael, and as you can see in today's video, I am here with two orange dialed Seiko watches, and that's because I'm going to be comparing the traditional, the older Seiko SKX011, now discontinued by the way, with its new, modern, upgraded, in my opinion, replacement, the Seiko 5 Sports. More specifically, this is the SBSA009, which means that the model is made exclusively or entirely in Japan, manufactured completely in Japan. However, this orange style Seiko 5 Sports is also available under a different reference, same look, same everything essentially, it's just not made in Japan. Anyways, I'm going to be going into all the pros and cons, what I think was improved, what I think should have been left alone in this video, so let's get started. And here we have it, the comparison. Our two subjects, of course, as you already heard in the intro, this is the SKX011, specifically the J version that's made in Japan, and this, the Seiko 5 Sports orange style, reference SBSA009. Now, with that reference, if you didn't already know, an SBSA reference on a Seiko 5 Sports, it's going to indicate that this is a model made in Japan. So I did want to have this comparison as close as possible. These are both the versions made in Japan now. The 011 is available made not in Japan. And if I'm not mistaken, this SBSA 009 is also available in a not made in Japan confirmation. However, I'm not totally sure of the reference there. Now, if we're taking a broad look at these two pieces, obviously the look is different. The case dimensions are going to be essentially exactly the same. Obviously, you can see both have die bezels. The knurling on the bezels is pretty similar. Both have Hardlex crystals, so those are scratch resistant. The bezel is this two-tone black with gold. Now, we do encounter one of the first differences there, and that is this one has minute markings down to 20 minutes, when the SKX has minute markings, throughout the entire bezel. Obviously, small details, but worth pointing out. And throughout this video, that's pretty much what I'm going to be concentrating on, because if you're not a watch nerd, these are just two orange style watches. But obviously, if you've made it this far, you're likely considering one or the other, if not both, and you want all the details, and I'm hoping to give them to you here. Continuing on to the dial. Now, while at a distance they may seem like a pretty similar tone, if you do get up close, you can see that this is more of a flat texture, let's say, on the SKX, whereas the Seiko 5 Sports has a very attractive, at least in my opinion, sunray finish there. You can see the brushing sort of emanating from the center of the dial, and I do find that more appealing. However, the hues of the oranges are not the same, and this is more signal or like emergency orange, which this is not quite the same. Now on the dial, obviously you can see we have sort of these black outlines to the indices, plenty of lume. This is exactly the same as far as the amount of lume, and I'm sure this is Lumibright. I'm sure this is probably likely to be the same, so they're equally as luminous. However, the Seiko 5 Sports does have what appear to be applied indices in that same black contrast. So again, they're keeping a lot of the things the same, but just changing a couple details. Obviously, we still have what appear to be yellow, or at least yellow gold colored hands at center. At black seconds hand, the date, text, and the print is the same. And we also have our black minute markings on the internal rehaut. Now moving on to the bracelet. Actually, one last thing on the case. Obviously, SBSA009, as all Seiko 5 Sports models, is going to have that see-through case back, whereas our old boy here does not, has a traditional solid case back. Let's point out, you can see there at the bottom of the dial, made in Japan, and that to the right of the 6 o'clock is the indicator or the name of the movement, that's 7S26, whereas the Seiko 5 Sports also made in Japan, but this has the upgraded 4R36 movement. Now, I was going to move on to Moving on to the bracelet options, this SKX011 is offered mostly on this rubber strap. Now this rubber wave, this is super iconic to SKX. Again, some SKX fans out there love this. I'm not the biggest fan, and I actually kind of disliked it at first. I did wear it. I have been wearing SKXs a lot more over the past 12 months, let's say the past year. And I've become a bigger fan of it. It is pretty unique. It isn't super comfortable, but if you have it set to the right essentially size, it kind of just floats above your wrist. If you have it too tight, this rubber is so stiff that it will be really quite comfortable. Nevertheless, it does have a nice texture on the back so that the strap isn't, it isn't flat against your wrist, and it doesn't make it super sweaty. Now the Seiko 5 Sports version, as you can see, is offered on this stainless steel bracelet. Now this is reminiscent of a Rolex Oyster bracelet. It does have slight taper, obviously with our clasp, stamped steel, very secure, double security. If you want a closer look, I think I did forget to mention, I've reviewed both of these individually on the channel, so make sure to search for them if you want more details on each. Another thing to note, if you, like me, weren't a big fan of this rubber strap and you wanted to change it, you'd have to get in there with a screwdriver and kind of pull the spring bar, whereas with the updated model, we have what are called lug holes, and I'm a big fan of this feature just because it makes it super simple. You don't even need a screwdriver. You can literally fit a paper clip in there, push in the spring bar, and replace this in under a minute, whereas I've had quite a bit of trouble changing the straps on an SKX, and not this particular model, but I have scratched up lugs just because it's this rubber is quite stiff, so it makes it very difficult to get in there. One of the sticking points about the SKX being replaced by the Seiko 5 Sports is the fact that the SKX used to have a screw down crown, which allowed it to have, as you can see there on the dial, 200 meters water resistance. Now the Seiko 5 Sports does not have that 200 meter water resistance, nor does it have the screw down crown. This one's only 100 meter water resistance, but as a trade-off, you have now, hopefully you can hear that, you can have hand winding at position 0, so that's when the crown is all the way in, which in my opinion is incredibly convenient and useful. Additionally, the 4R36 movement in the upgraded version also has hacking seconds. As you can see there, I pull out the crown to position 2, the last position, and the second hand will stop, whereas the older model, the crown's already unscrewed, I'm out to that last position where I can change the time, and you can see that the second hand is still ticking away. And that's pretty much going to be it as far as the differences and similarities between these two models. Now, for my personal opinion, I think the upgraded model, not just because it's the bracelet, although I do like this bracelet a lot, again, super easy to change the strap or the bracelet if you don't like it. It's just newer. I think it's more refined. The movement improvements, I think, make this a better choice. I am sure SKX fans will more than likely prefer the older style. Again, two different tastes, and you're likely not going to go wrong wearing both, or owning both and wearing one time and one the other. I do think this is much more wearable as far as with a button down, as you can see what I'm wearing here, just because of the bracelet. I don't know, it's a lot more elegant in my opinion now. SKX fans didn't like SKXs for being an elegant timepiece. They weren't meant to be. It's supposed to be a tool watch, a diver's piece, but obviously very few of us go diving with our timepieces, so in that regard, I do think the 5 Sports is a better timepiece. However, as with anything related to time or to wristwatches, it's obviously going to be a thing of preference, and I recommend you try both. Try to get both on your wrist and see which one you prefer. And there's a big secondhand market now for these SKXs now that they're discontinued, so you're likely not going to have a hard time. You may have a hard time finding one at a deal, but if you purchase it, I think you're going to have a hard time losing money on it. If nothing else, you'll sell it for the same that you purchased it for. But anyways, there you have them. There you have it. That is our comparison between the older Seiko SKX011 and the newer, upgraded Seiko 5 Sports SBSA009. Now, if that left you with any questions or comments, make sure to drop them below. Give us a thumbs up on the video if you enjoyed it and found it helpful, and subscribe to our channel for more wristwatch and men's lifestyle content. If you're looking for pricing on either of these, I do have some links in the description that you can check out. I can't tell you a price. Again, it's always changing. That is the nature of these Seiko 5 sports models, whether it's the modern or the older one, so you're going to have to check it out yourself. Anyways, I'm Raphael. This is BespokeUnit. Thanks for watching.